In our previous video, we looked at what the human resource manager does, and that's kind of tricky for them because not only are they an employee of the business, but they have to represent the business in workplace relations. So what is their role? Well, we'll say they've got these 4 roles here. So let's go through each one. So the main one is to act as an intermediary between employees and unions and the employer to represent the interests of both parties. So let's take our employee here, John Smith, works for Simmons Homes, the employer, and he says, I want a good wage and great workplace conditions. And Simmons Homes says, well, look, we want you to maximize your productivity so we can make a profit and the business can be successful. We kind of both want the same thing. If the employees are happy and doing well, the business benefits. And if the business is doing well, the employee should benefit. However, the human resource manager is kind of stuck in the middle here because they say, I'm an employee, so I want a good wage and great workplace conditions too, but the employer pays me to maximize the productivity and profits of the business. Now, when we did an earlier topic on stakeholders, what's often good for one stakeholder is bad for the other. So if employees do get a wage increase and pay goes up, that might reduce the profitability of the business. So what does the human resource manager do? Well, they're the one that helps the 2 parties come to an agreement. So they say, let's have good workplace relations so we all get what we want. As the human resource manager, I will ensure employees are happy and motivated, but also that the business is productive and makes a profit. And lastly, that the wages and conditions of the workplace are at a level that helps achieve this, and that's their role, to be an intermediary. So the intermediary just means the person in the middle, sort of helping both parties get along. Number 2, they represent the business in its negotiations with employees and unions and respond to workplace relations queries from both parties. So how does that work? Let's say we've got some employees here and that some of them are in the union and they're negotiating with Simmons Homes. So they're all builders. It's time to negotiate a new contract. And they say, the union says, we want $40 an hour for our members. Simmons Homes come back and say, that's going to send us broke. Our offer is $26 per hour. So here's the human resource manager. Clearly these 2 parties aren't going to agree. If that's where they're finishing, they're not going to agree. So I guess if I'm an employee, I say, well, what's the minimum hourly rate I should be getting according to the law per hour? You can go to the human resource manager for that. They go, look, the minimum rate is actually $27 per hour. And now Simmons Homes might come back to the human resource manager and go, we need you to tell us what hourly rate can we pay to not only maximize efficiency, but still make a profit. So both parties here have gone to the human resource manager to get some valuable information. And the human resource manager comes back and says, look, we've done the maths on this and we can afford around $30 to $34 an hour. That will maximize efficiency. It'll be above the minimum of 27 and the business will still make a profit. So the human resource manager is here, helped with the negotiations by sort of responding to queries from both parties there. And that's their role. So they would be in the middle now as that intermediary and say, look, let's work together. $26 per hour is too low, but $40 an hour is just not feasible. We've done the maths on this and a rate of $32 per hour seems fair. And now the 2 parties can agree. Number 3, human resource managers ensure that management provides employees with the correct wages and entitlements. You'd think that wouldn't happen, but it does all the time. It's in the news all the time. Some employees got underpaid or didn't get the right breaks. This happened at McDonald's quite recently. And so it's the human resource manager's role to have for their employer to go to them and go to the human resource manager and go, look, can you tell me what's the minimum legal wage rate for workers in this industry and am I paying it? What are the workplace safety conditions and standards that I have to pay for my employees? And also, what about what strategies will best motivate our employees? And that's the topic we did earlier when we did motivation. And that's the human resource manager. The employer, that's the person that the employer goes to make sure employees are getting the correct wages and entitlements, but also how to get the best out of my workers. And lastly, what if there is a dispute between the employees and the employers? Well, this is where it gets very murky for the human resource manager. Because not only are they an employee, but they also have to represent the business or the employer in this dispute. So let's say we've got our CFMEU union over here saying one of our members injured themselves at your worksite, Simmons Homes, because the correct safety equipment wasn't provided. Simmons Homes comes back and says the correct safety equipment was provided, the employee didn't use it correctly. The union comes back and says he didn't use it correctly because you didn't train him how to use it, which you were required to do. Simmons Homes comes back and says that's because he called in sick on the day the training was held and he didn't even provide a medical certificate. So clearly we're going to have a dispute here. And what we don't want is for this to go to court. So who can help with that? Well, that would be the human resource manager. So they can be that intermediary in the middle and say, let's sit down and resolve this dispute in a way that is in the best interest of both parties without having to go to court. And that's a really important role, to represent the business in the dispute resolution process with employees and trade unions.